Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strucco, joined by Adam Eaton. Welcome in to Sons of UCF Live. Adam, hello. Good to see you.
Trace, always good to see you. I'll take everyone behind the scenes. Trace has had a rough couple of hours here. He's a little feisty. He's a little hot under the collar there, but don't you worry, friends. This next hour plus, whatever long this takes, it will get him into another great mood, Trace. It's spring break, by the way. You got to be excited about spring break.
It is spring break, and as Mr. Matt Dolan reminds us, 23 weeks, I'm sorry, typo by me and my brain, 23 weeks until the start of the 2025 UCF football season. And at fifth quarter, UCF says 161 days until the Knights kick off. You mentioned spring break. The Knights practiced for a week, then they stopped practicing. Any crazy spring break memories from you during your UCF days?
Ooh, boy, I don't know that we can. I know there was a Daytona.
What can you share?
I know there's a Daytona trip that we took. A bunch of us. UCF Mike was there. My now wife was with us. A bunch of roommates. That was a good time. Nothing out of control. I think we stayed in the country for all of them, if I can recall correctly. So, yeah, just hanging out, pools, beaches, adult beverages. Even though we may or may not have been adults, it's fine.
Even though you may not have been adults. One of my nephews is right now up in the Pensacola, Panama City area. And so far through the first couple of days has kept himself out of trouble. So that's a good development.
Well, define trouble. I mean,
well, I talked to him. I said, have fun. Don't get arrested. Don't, ruin your reputation. You got a lot going for you into your future, and drink plenty of water.
I tell you what, Trace, these kids, well, I got to hydrate. Two for one on that. I got these kids these days, Trace. I tell you, if there had been social media around when I was in college, there could be some issue. Things you do now get videotaped and put everywhere. So, I mean, God bless these kids these days with the social media stuff. We got to hide a little bit back when we were in the spring break days.
Well, I'm pretty much hidden now on social media. Within the last hour, I have been blocked from Twitter. You can see me, apparently, but I can't even see me. It's stripped from my phone. I've made the appropriate appeals. I was asked to change a password, and then I was deactivated. I think it may have had something to do with Gus Malzahn. I'm blaming Gus. I was up in Tallahassee for a couple of days this week. I looked for him, but couldn't find him.
He has been shutting things down this week, so it's very possible that while he was there, he just made a couple of phone calls. That's all.
So spring break for the Knights. We've talked about it the first week of practice on Around the Kingdom and Around the Kingdom Overtime. Anything jump out at you, what you saw in the clips and what you heard in the interviews?
What I saw in the clips, absolutely nothing jumps out because I have no idea how to put that in context, right? We saw, quarterbacks throwing the ball 10 to 15 yards down the field. That's really about it. So clip-wise, nothing. I think for media, what you heard a lot of is just, these guys really getting an opportunity to learn each other, gel as a team. I think a lot of excitement from players around Scott Frost being back and being around him as a coach. And I heard a lot of tempered expectations. Alex Grinch, Steve Cooper, Scott Frost, all of them individually were tempering expectations, telling everyone it's early. They got a lot of things to do. I think Scott Frost said, quote, "We made a lot of mistakes." So tempering of expectations, which, again, is interesting. It's kind of a refreshing change from what we're used to, but certainly after a while, that's going to get concerning. But for week one, I think it makes sense based on what you know about this team and kind of where they are right now.
I know. I think it's like baseball and spring training. Everybody's got a chance in that first week. You feel good about the season ahead. I feel nothing but good vibes about spring camp. I'm not like Eric Lopez on Around the Kingdom. Like, what do we learn and why are we covering it? I mean, it's football, right? I mean, why not?
Look, I'd rather cover football than other things. I'd rather talk about football than other things. But, I don't think we're going to get an encyclopedia of knowledge based on these next 4 weeks. And it's not for us to get knowledge, frankly, right? It's for the coaches and the coaching staff and the players to kind of figure out where they are too. We're going to get nuggets here and there and bits and pieces. I do like foreshadowing. You shared with us that post-practice media availabilities will be a rotation of the assistant coaches and players from that position group. I like that a lot. I mean, with all due respect to Coach Malzahn and Ted Roof, and hearing from them every week got a little tiresome. So I like that we're going to hear from different coaches, hear perspectives, philosophies, different players from those position groups. So I think that'll help kind of understand where we are. But I don't think anyone should walk out of here expecting to know what this team is capable of in 2025. I don't know that the coaches are really going to know that by the end of the spring. I think we should just enjoy the fact that we have practice, listen to the vibes, listen to the way the team is putting itself together, and hope for the best once the fall season turns around. But don't forget, there's a portal in between all this stuff too. So I think we have to temper those expectations as well.
Yeah, we barely knew you. Were you leaving so soon for most of these guys? We got 7.5 minutes with head coach Scott Frost in his first and only media availability thus far through the first week. He's scheduled to come back after the first scrimmage, open practice rather, on April 5th. So that's when we hear from him again. In between then, we expect to hear from Mackenzie Milton to talk about quarterbacks. Now, as you said, and as we've been told by Sports Information, it's players from that position group. It's been a couple of players, 2, 3, one day. Interested to see what they do with quarterbacks on the day Mackenzie Milton talks with the media.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I know we've got some mailbag questions coming up, so I won't spoil that. But obviously, that's the biggest question everyone has on their mind is what's going to happen with quarterback. I think we've seen clips of all of them in some capacity. Yourself, Dwayne Jones, Andrew Cherico have been out there leading the charge and getting those clips. I think we've seen all of them in some capacity. But again, based on the 15 seconds you get a chance to observe, I don't know that we know anything. The only thing I can tell you is as follows. As far as I can tell, UCF has only put out one clip of a quarterback making a great play. That was Taven Jackson. I haven't seen a video of anybody else making plays. I'm not saying that means anything, but we've got nothing else to go off, favorite friends. So this becomes the new release of the JFK files where you have to sift through and find any nugget we
What's
can use.
been redacted, Adam?
Well, I've got some inside info there, but I'll share that later on.
Yeah, we saw Philip Dunham pick off a pass. So of course, leads to the question, who may have thrown that pass? We don't know the answer to that directly. You were good to put together some compilation of sound from players and coaches from the first week. Let's listen to that.
Coach Frost, man, what you mean? Like, you've been here 2017. You know his history, and some of the guys that went to Seminole, they was on his team, so we already know what he about. We watched it growing up, and finally get to be a part of it is just special. We trying to do the same thing, probably better.
What does 2017 mean to you?
Brandon Moore and Gabe Davis, we was ball boys from him. Cam Moore, that's his big older brother. We've been ball boys at Seminole all our life, so just watching them do it, and then it's our chance, like we getting a chance to do it now, so it's pretty special. We trying to, match it, even be better.
Not to dwell on the past, but I just think Coach Frost came in, he just preached on being winners, and I just think we're just gonna be winners just by the way we work and everything like that.
You got spring break next week. What is your plan? I mean, do you stay with football, or do you kind of want to get away?
It's kind of hard to get away from football because this is what I like to do. But I plan to chill for a little bit, but also get on the field, get some weights, and keep going, get ready for our first week out.
Staying at home, probably come in and meet a few days. That's it.
Some of these guys, getting to know them, likable guys there. I like that effect, by the way, whatever that is that you added there.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment there. You know what I think is telling about that? As I was putting that together, Trace, I was thinking about something. And again, I don't want to be naive to not assume that there are other things at play, right, potentially in college athletics these days. But Damari Henderson and his brother, obviously, were players who are reported to be thinking about going in the portal. Wanted to leave UCF. Hometown kids, they mentioned they went to Seminole, a school that's produced some great UCF talent. Reported to be thinking about the portal and leaving UCF, although they never officially entered the portal. And to potentially be at that moment where maybe they're going to go in the portal, to hearing Damari Henderson, as soon as you asked him about Scott Frost, a huge smile breaks on his face, and he says, "What you mean about Coach Frost?" The fact that turned around so quickly just tells you a little bit about the culture that this team's trying to build. And I love the fact that players are buying into that, seeing that there's something potential here from a football team perspective. Kylan Fox on the team last year said, "Hey, I don't want to talk about that," but Coach Frost said, "Let's be winners." And I do think there is an element of an attitude change, of a culture change that has to take hold. And I love hearing from those guys, little nuggets that lead you to think that just maybe that's taking place. We all can assume it on the outside, right? But the smile on Damari Henderson's face, you can't fake that. The ability to talk about being a winner it's not something you have to sort of pantomime at the microphone. So I like that you're seeing some nuggets of that actually looks like it may be holding true.
Some seeds planted here in the spring germinate in the fall, right? So that's a little bit of a look back to the first week of spring practice. Now spring break. Next week they begin again. We haven't been given anything official, but the schedule for media availability, about 15, 20 minutes off the top there, about 9 o'clock. They're getting there earlier than was the case during the Malzahn era outside in the practice fields. And then about 10:30, 11 is that media availability. Looking at Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, unless there's a change in the schedule going into week 2. So we will be back at it out at UCF for that coverage. You can, of course, find the recaps from practice 1, 2, and 3. And then Andrew Cherico, Nick Williams, Dwayne Jones put together a recap of the week. So all of those right now on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Thank you for helping with the edits on that one. Tried to do a little something new, and thanks for the guys for rolling with it. We'll have more coverage, of course, throughout spring camp.
Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel, we actually have it under a specific link, right? So you can just go and search for playlists. You'll see all the spring coverage there. Again, we'll have every practice covered. We'll have stuff on the website at some point. We'll have the newsletter out there too. So wall-to-wall, full team coverage of everything going on in spring practice over the next 3 weeks before we retire into rowing talk.
Well, I don't know when the rowing talk is taking
neither
place.
Do
Yeah. It's a little fun I have with Brian W. Peterson where I every so often get a little angst and threaten to shutter the mailbag, and that leads to some outrage, but it leads to some questions. There are a lot of people that like Brian. And the cup runneth over this week, and it's spring break, and we're taking it a little easy. I had a little travel this week, went looking for Gus up in Tallahassee.
What were you going to do if you found him? We haven't discussed this.
I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead.
Okay.
I didn't think I'd be allowed that close.
What do you think he would do to you? Do you think he'd say hello? Do you think he'd just turn around? Do you think if you walked up and said, "Hey guys, how you been?" Do you think he'd act like he didn't know you? Do you think he'd at least be cordial? Would you expect cordial? Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
I'd like to think there'd be cordiality there. So I've broken up the mailbag. It clustered the questions together, some football questions, later some basketball questions, and then more miscellaneous towards the end. Do we roll the mailbag open once?
I don't know what
do we do it 3 times? Do we wait till later? Do we just go into the football questions?
I wasn't sure how to do this either. I think we roll it at the end. Let's not break the rhythm here. That's when it usually, Brian's a 950 guy. He's not a 912 guy. So let's keep Brian later on in the rundown there.
All right. Let's get into some of these football questions after the first week of practice. At FLA Box Breakers, let's start off hard hitting. Who hurt our football program more by leaving? Scott Frost the first time or Danny White? It's an interesting question. It also, your answer may reflect on what you think about the replacements at those positions. Josh Heupel, Gus Malzahn, Terry Mohadra at athletic director. You first.
Shocker you would ask that. Here's my analysis on that. I would say after Frost left, Heupel kept things in a favorable spot, right? They were 12-1 the next year. They were a 10-win team the following year, and obviously COVID hit, which just makes everything kind of strange, right? So I would say the football team continued at least on a positive trajectory, but the reality is Danny White touches every asset of every factor of what we're working on, right? So I think just the ability for his impact to have on all sports, but I know this is football related, I think it's got to be Danny White. I think he has the ability to touch branding, uniforms, stadium, operations, coaching hires, salaries, what NAL would have looked like too. I think the AD would have had much more purview over that, and be curious to see what Danny White would have done. He's having a ton of success at Tennessee. You got to wonder if he would have some of that same success here at UCF.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to say that the lack of success by Gus Malzahn, he is directly a Terry Mohadra hire, right? And now he's named another football coach, kind of a mixed bag. And some of the other hires, he certainly had success. But I guess Danny White always leaves on a very high note with the UCF fan base. And we do what you just said. We play what if. We won't get answers to those what ifs. I think there are some critical of some aspects of the Danny White tenure. I think there are things that go on behind the scenes we're not always privy to, right? Internal operations and the like. I think he was dinged a little bit by some of the fan base. I wasn't one of those on the scheduling formula that he had. And, Terry Mohajir's time as athletic director, his contract nearing, a point of decision whether to extend or what have you. So his tenure has been interesting, and it's hard to follow the guy, right? In the case of both Scott Frost and Danny White, both high moments for those guys, and it's hard to follow those guys. And I think Terry Mohajir is still working to emerge and establish his own reputation within UCF and move past that era, which every day, right, is further and further behind in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I mean, Terry's going to stack some W's at some point, right? We got to get some wins on the board. I think there's been a couple of things of late that have just irked the fan base that haven't gone the right way. Like you've got to get some W's on the board. Even getting to the Big 12, a lot of folks, I think Terry even said in one of the pressers that, it was already on third base when he got here, right? So I think Terry has to stack a couple W's before the fan base can kind of really understand that part. And you look at what Danny did from a branding standpoint, a marketing standpoint, the national championship stuff. I mean, to this day, Trace, it's still, what is it, 8 years later, and people still make the UCF national championship joke, right? Forever you think about that, Danny White was a genius in terms of the way he marketed that. And I think that's going to be something people remember. Terry Mohajir needs that moment. Maybe to Matt's point, build a lazy river and he'll get a W on the board. But he needs that moment right now, and he just hasn't had that opportunity yet. And maybe by his own doing in some cases, or maybe just by the circumstances that is college athletics in 2025.
Well, construction is well underway. It's interesting to see all of the dirt being moved and things happening at the towers. And so a lot of things going on out at the athletics
Trust me, I hear them in all of the video clips. I hear all the cranes, the background noises, and God knows what else is going on in the background there.
Yeah, at Andrew_Cherico, I think it's interesting. And by the way, you're part of the Sons. You can also ask questions. In his case,
we take everybody. Yeah,
a couple. He refers to this here as out of the 4 front runners in the quarterback room. Are there 4, Andrew? There's 4 front.
I think that may be an oxymoron. I don't think you would have a front runner that's more than one. Yes.
Who do you feel is least likely to be on the team to begin the season? You can't answer. It's too early. Jakari. I don't know who's allowed to transfer where. Everybody's allowed to go anywhere, so I think he could leave, right? So I'm going to name him.
Assuming it's a clean slate, to your point, there's nothing contractual I don't know about. Here is my official pie chart of percentages of players starting.
Do we have a graphic?
We don't have a graphic.
You got a little whiteboard? Could you have drawn?
I can write it down here. I've got Taven Jackson's odds at starting right now at 55%. Okay. I've got Dylan Risk at 25%.
Okay.
Got Cam Fancher at 15%.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You heard me.
Yeah, he threw one pass that was recorded
too. And I have Jakuri Brown at 5%. Going off of those percentages, I would agree with you that would put Jakuri in maybe in the 4th slot there, making
the 4th
him
front runner,
making him perhaps the most likely to try to transfer.
And why did you have Fancher?
I don't know. I have no idea. I may be dead wrong on this. I may be the guy at the end that everyone's laughing at on this one. I think there's something about his experience. We've seen a couple good throws from him. We've seen some tweets about him. There's some rumors about NIL stuff. Something about that just leads me to think that there's a reason they brought this guy in. And maybe while they're kind of getting other folks ready, maybe he has an opportunity again. I have him 3rd on the list, so I don't think he's going to start. But I think there's something about Cam Fancher that I think that team likes. And that's a very fair point, Matt.
On this quarterback question, we saw 4 quarterbacks start games last year, including Jakari Brown. What would you put the number at for quarterbacks that start games in 2025?
I'm going to try to be optimistic here. I'm going to go 2.
2.
I'm going to go 2.
And only a 5% chance.
5% chance that's Jakari Brown.
Jakari.
Yes.
At Benny Boy 44. I know quarterback's the hot topic right now, but he's more interested in who's standing out in the linebacker room. Do we finally have a guy that's going to fill the holes left by Tatum Bethune and JJB? And based on what you've seen, who's leading the race there? We don't see enough. We don't see enough to assess that. But the bigger point is when mentioning those names, there has been a hole.
I think there's a handful of opportunity guys that have a chance here. Cole Kozlowski, the transfer from Colgate, had 121 tackles last year 4 sacks. He's a guy that in one of his videos, he mentioned that Scott Frost personally reached out to try to recruit him. That's got to be a good sign. Lewis Carter, linebacker from Oklahoma, didn't play a ton from a Tampa kid, had a ton of stars in his name. Athletic kid from what we can tell. Could sort of fill that role. Phil Picotti, another kid from Oklahoma, has not played ever from the Tampa area, another 4-star kid. Andrew Harris, don't forget him. He was on UCF's team last year. Had a couple of nice moments, a quick, young, athletic linebacker. Could he get in the mix? And we forget Kelly Larson for Virginia Tech, the transfer. Had 40-some tackles last year. He committed, decommitted, then recommitted to UCF. He's a big kid at 6'4". I think there's some names there. Now, again, are these guys any good? I've seen them stretching, and I saw them bobbing their heads to Gunna. But outside of that, I have no idea. But I think there's a list of people here that you can at least feel good about. I'm kind of rooting for Andrew Harris. I think he's a kid who's come to UCF. He's worked hard. He's played special teams. He's been through a couple of different changes. I think he's popped on film when we've seen him before. So I'm going to root for the guy that's been here for a while. I'm going to root for Andrew Harris, maybe to get some run.
At most of these positions, as we talked about the turnover with the team, who seizes the moment, their moment, to make a difference here and make an impact during this spring? There may not be any official depth chart released, but coaches are paying attention and they have a sense of where things are and which guys are going to stand out. And they have a moment here during spring to make that difference and have their moments.
The one thing I hope is true, I think is going to be true, and I hope is true, that's different under this regime than the previous. I feel like this regime, and I hope this, they're going to play the best guy, whoever it is. I think there may have been a tendency under the previous regime to play the guy with the school attached to his name or the stars attached to his name and chase some of these guys who had some. I think this staff, from what I hope and understand, that they're going to play the best people. If it's the kid from Colgate or if it's the kid who's never played before, I hope that this staff does not care as much as it seemed like the previous staff cared.
At Marty Helwig, are all of the spring football practices taped in high def? Now, I don't know. Do you know?
I'm going to need you to climb up to the tower.
I got to ask somebody.
I got to hope. I got to hope we have broadcast style, cameras up top there.
It's very interesting how they chop up video. It's not the splice and film days or anything like that. It's all loaded in the computer and they can break it down by position group. I mean, when you're watching a 3-hour football game, for them breaking down film, and I know they spend a lot of time looking at it, it's much faster, right? They're cutting out all the nonsense. They're showing you plays, and then they break them down into position groups. So I will try and get greater clarity on that when I'm out at UCF.
Please do. Yes. Climb up to the tower there, Charles. Find out what's going on for me.
Well, that tower is on the other side now, and they've got the portable towers, and then they're
You're nimble. I trust you.
At Golden Knight _2, in this new age of college sports, do you think playing offense or defense has gotten easier or harder? I feel it's harder playing defense over time than offense. I think because offenses innovate so often, I think it is harder for defenses to adjust.
Well, I think the rules also slant to the offensive side, right? If you sneeze near the quarterback, it's 15 yards. Pass interference seems to get called an awful lot on defenses. So I think the rules make it a little more challenging to play defense than offense these days.
At KCEO, a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers there.
Yeah, that'll be me when my account is not restored. And I'm SignPez 9765402. Is Scott Frost, the coach, is looking to add any additional players out of the portal? I guess so. I think so. Right? They're looking.
I would think so.
Because do you think there will be any players looking to transfer after spring practice? That was part two. So. The answer is yes, and that's why they got to look. Everybody's looking.
Well, I would say just looking at the roster, and again, that's just looking at numbers. I don't know personalities and anything else. There's 20-something defensive backs listed on the roster, right? That seems like a glut of defensive backs. I got to imagine somebody after the spring is going to learn that they're not in the rotation and maybe look elsewhere. In terms of what UCF needs, I think we need depth at the running back position. I think we need depth at the wide receiver position. I don't know that we have a punter. Grant Reddick is listed as kicker punter on the roster. That's a surprising development. So I don't know if we have a punter at this point. We finally got a long snapper, which was the other thing. I know we joke about that, but that's a pretty key position. And anytime you get a large human being to play offensive or defensive lines, you take that person. So I do think there's some holes UCF still wants to fill. And again, there's going to be some guys who learn that they're not going to be maybe in the potential 2 deep or 3 deep that are probably going to look elsewhere after the spring as well.
So that's pretty much the football questions that we got clustered this week. We have a whole pack of basketball questions.
Interesting.
Coming up as well. Last week, season was all over.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't. The 17-16 UCF Knights men's basketball team, 7-13, the Big 12. They bowed out of the Big 12 championship. What was that? They beat Utah, but they lost to Kansas.
That's correct.
Right? Yeah. They live to see another day in something called the Crown. We've had a little bit of fun with this week. I still like Ben going, what now? Ben Hazel going, what is this?
Yeah.
I asked Andrew Cherico if he could put it together and explain it a little bit for us. Now, how do we want to play this? So are we bringing in Mr. Cherico? Or are we going to run
Andrew
the story
Cherico
first?
is here, and he is ready to go. He's actually prepared something for us tonight. You don't even know this, Trace.
I don't know.
We're going to play this video. This is an update, but he's going to give us his official year-end awards. So he's been charting this thing all year. Andrew's been to more games than pretty much anybody.
Pretty much.
So he's got our year-end awards coming up. Before that, we've got to learn a little bit more about this Crown tournament, and everybody stay tuned for a cameo appearance in this week's Men's Basketball Minute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Cherico, and welcome back to your Sons of UCF Men's Basketball Minute. While the Knights didn't meet their own expectations of going dancing, the Knights are agreeing to a new competition after accepting an invite to the brand new college basketball Crown Tournament hosted in Las Vegas. The tournament is set to have a lucrative NIL prize, and some say it may be better than the NIT. The only thing is, while the madness is going on, the CBC isn't set to start for another 2 weeks, where UCF will be matched up against 20-12 Oregon State in the first round on April 1st at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And until next time, hit it, Dad.
And thank you for watching your Sons of UCF Men's Basketball Minute.
There we go. He told me Dad wouldn't come on. Well, now I understand why. Yeah, now I understand why. He said Dad wouldn't come on live, but that's
close enough.
Right there.
Close enough.
That's pretty good. So do we have Andrew?
We have Andrew Cherico. We absolutely have Andrew Cherico.
There we go.
What's going on,
Cherico? How are you? Nice appearance by your dad.
Thank you. He's actually taking a nap right now, so I don't think he would have made it.
Is it a nap at this time?
Wait, a 9:30 nap? Is he hanging out for the late games in March Madness? Is that
he has a tendency?
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it, Andrew. All right, I teased this off the top. You have seen more UCF basketball than probably anybody else that wears black and gold and covers UCF. So what I thought would be interesting is to get your season end awards. Who does Andrew Cherico think has won award? So I've got some categories for you. So I'm going to throw these out there, and I want to see who you've got as the award. This one a couple of these are going to be pretty easy. I apologize in advance. There's not going to be a lot of hot takes here, Andrew. But who would you call your rookie of the year? Who was the rookie of the year for this men's UCF basketball team?
I mean, it's nobody other than freshman center Mustafa Chiam. Barring that, he's a true freshman on the team. Led the Big 12, led leaders among the Big 12 in blocks. And honestly, without him on the court, this team had no interior defense. So had to be him. There's no.
Go back. Say that line again. Without him on the court, this team.
You said interior defense. I think you just took the word interior out, and I think it would still hold. Trace, Andrew,
had to be him.
Are either of you, Trace, Andrew, surprised at how well he played for a freshman that, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, by the way, he reclassified and should be at a senior prom. I think that was mentioned at every single game that was broadcast. Are either of you surprised at how well he played?
I'm surprised at his development over the course of the season, that he got better game after game. That would be my surprise.
Oh, absolutely.
As much as he did, as much improvement as he made.
And yeah, that I completely agree with Trace. I mean, I expected him to take his time getting into. I mean, you saw it earlier in the season when they matched up against Kansas the first time. Hunter had a field day with Mustafa, but then next time around, they had a way better bout.
By the way, Kansas just got bounced from the NCAA tournament, losing to Arkansas. So Kansas out in the first round. All right, Andrew, who gets your most
Arkansas, by the way?
You should have. I did as well. Who's your most improved player on this? Now, there's not a lot who came back from year one to year two, so this may be a challenge. But who is your most improved player on this year's team?
So actually, I was hoping this was the next question because I wanted to bounce it off of Trace's answer. I didn't want to shoot the gun, though. It has to be Mustafa Chiam as well. From the progression you saw from the first game of the non-conference season to the final game against Kansas, I mean, there is tremendous growth from him throughout the season. You saw him develop his shot from beyond the arc this year, which nobody expected him to turn into a stretch five, or even shooting 30% from the field is better than not having that spacing, which UCF hasn't had these past couple of years, which allowed offense to grow. And then, like I said, defensively, He put on not as much muscle as we hoped by the end of the season, but he still got a lot more physical. He learned how to stay out of foul trouble. He learned his value on the court. Johnny Dawkins was visibly upset after a couple of games where he was in foul trouble and he couldn't stay on. And then Johnny Dawkins ended up challenging him to double-doubles and such, and he eventually just started putting it all together, especially towards the end. And Trace can recall, I called it in the middle of the season. I was like, a team would be willing to take a chance on Mustafa Chiam just because he's 7'2", 7'1", 7'2", three-pointer, great blocking, great fundamentals, great hands. A team could be willing to take a chance on a raw prospect like him.
Trace,
of returning players, Andrew, who showed the most
of returning players, we didn't have much to work with. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to have to go with Nils Mahoski, though.
Oh, wow.
I think we saw Nils. It's a very small sample size, but he earned. Grumpy Dad might not be happy.
That's why
you're gonna have to up that dollar. I think
that's
Robert.
Why
I'm
Robert
sorry.
wants to see it.
My dad may have had a few cold ones. No,
there we go.
For Nils, I believe we saw in the small sample size of games, he was hustling his butt off each play. He had a couple games with 7-8 rebounds, hit some clutch threes in the Kansas game, hit some clutch threes to end the season. And he started his way into the lineup when the team was seeing injuries with Jordan Ivy Curry, Mikey Williams, and etc.
I think Tyler Hendricks potentially gets a run there as well. He played really well down the end of the stretch. Yeah.
I also agree. It was between those two for returners. Yeah. I mean,
could we just argue though that Darius Johnson's game improved? He jumped from junior year to senior year.
Oh no, he absolutely did. I just feel like in terms of the most improved award, I mean, you have to improve for me. That means like the biggest jump. I feel like we already knew what Darius was going to be this year. We still had no clue about Nils or Tyler. That's what I thought in my mind.
Well, Andrew, I didn't know it was going to fall this way, but I think we may have an opportunity for almost a clean sweep here. Who is your defensive player of the year for UCF?
Benny Williams. Take a bow.
After reviewing the last two, I mean, Mustafa's hard not to choose. It's hard. Okay. I mean, when you look at this team between Keyshawn, Darius, and Mustafa, I can't believe that this team didn't do better than they did. This was around a 51-49 toss-up for me when choosing this between Mustafa and Darius. Darius led the team in steals with around 2.3 steals a game. Mustafa led the team with like 2.6 blocks a game. Both the team leaders and amongst the Big 12 leaders in each of the categories. But I'm just going to have to go with Mustafa just because I think you saw the defensive value more when he was on the court as opposed to when Darius was off the court. I feel like you still got solid defense out of Mikey at times, still got solid defense out of Tyler at times. Now, these are guys not as consistent as Darius. And when I mean like the defensive effort between those guys and Darius is up here, down here. But with Mustafa, it was up here than nothing else. And I say with Mustafa, his value on the court was undeniable.
Here's an award Mustafa cannot win. What was the game of the year, Andrew? What was the game of the year for UCF?
Game of the year? I'm going to go, and this is in terms of best player performance or just game?
Just game of the year. The game that you circle as this was the best game.
You'll never forget where you were.
Oh, I'll never forget where I were. See, this was a hard one. All of these are hard. I think I'm going to say that every time. Because you don't want to pick a loss as the best game of the year, even though UCF's best performances were arguably losses against Kansas in the final game of the Big 12 tournament or against Houston when they let off that last-second buzzer beater. But it has to be the 40-point performance where Keyshawn Hall led the team against Arizona State. That was a great performance. I thought after that performance, I believe that was around New Year's. I think we thought that team was going to do a lot better than everybody expected, and seeing Keyshawn go off the way he did, I think that was amongst the first of his big scoring performances. And we thought we were in for a treat until February came. Kind of hate February now.
Until the calendar turns. What about moment of the year, performance of the year? Does something stand out for you on either?
This was a no-brainer for me. It was Darius Johnson's 36-point performance for his final home game in his career at UCF. Led the team to victory over Oklahoma State. I I think we all knew Darius was in line to have a big performance. I don't think anybody knew it was going to be his career high, and he even said it himself. There was no better way to end the season. So big ups to Darius. That's a game I'll say I was there for.
All right. And finally, the build-up, the final question, Andrew. Who was the MVP of this team? Keyshawn Hall leads in scoring. Darius Johnson seemed to be the engine that made this thing go, and a beloved figure for UCF. Andrew Cherico, your official MVP is who?
See, I'm going to use my seniority and add another award after this one.
Oh, even better. Perfect.
Because I feel
let's lean back. He's practicing
right.
on the fly.
Let him cook. I'm good.
No, I think the team MVP this year was Keyshawn Hall. It was a very hard choice between picking Keyshawn and Darius. Keyshawn led the Big 12 in points per game, was the team's leading rebounder. And for the games that UCF did win, if he didn't have those big-time scoring performances, those would have not been wins, including the Arizona State game. Now, Keyshawn Hall, great performance, great season performance. Some questionable online social media posts, some questionable post-game comments regarding team effort. But I think if we just put the ball on the court and see the way, it's just between the inconsistencies, but between the consistencies, I think Keyshawn deserves that award. Now, the final, and I think the best award for this team this year, because this team did not meet the expectations, so I feel like it's fitting, was the backbone and the heart of this UCF team was Darius Johnson. Without Darius Johnson, this team would have not meshed. The team chemistry would not be there. He was a leader on the court at all times, through the bad games and the good games. He was the guy to rely on.
What do we call that award? The backbone award? What's that one called?
The Heart of UCF award.
The Heart of UCF award.
There
Gotcha.
we go.
Okay.
Any points off for defense on Keyshawn Hall? Any points?
That's where I had to weigh in for the MVP award. I had to weigh in. He's had some bad games. There's no denying that. We saw the 2 for 11s, 3 for 10. We saw those performances. But then we also saw the 9 for 9 in the first half, 40 points, 7 for 7 in the first half, 34 points. And I feel like the good came with the bad with Keyshawn, but without the good, those wins wouldn't have came. And in the losses that UCF had during that 7-game losing streak, although they came out as losses, he was the team leading scorer in each of those possessions and each of those games. So without him, the score could have been worse, because if he wasn't scoring, the defense wouldn't have been able to keep up.
Could have 24-25 UCF men's basketball. Could have been worse.
Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse.
That's what the crown is. The crown is they should today college basketball crown. It could have been worse.
You could have been in the NIT. Any more awards, or that puts a wrap on the postseason?
And the best men's basketball coverage of the year goes to Sons of UCF.
There we go. All right, self-congratulatory session here on Sons of UCF Live. Stick around with us. We've got a bunch of questions, basketball related. Get you to weigh in on those, and of course, Adam's titled the latest edition of the Sons of UCF newsletter, "The Kingdom Needs a Crown?" ? The kingdom needs that banner. That's what they.
No, do not hang a banner. Do not.
Oh, they win the crown
over my dead body. Will they hang a banner?
If they win the crown, there's a banner.
You're not going to support the banner.
No.
There's going to be a banner.
No, don't hang a banner.
Yeah,
you can't hang a banner.
Terry needed that win. Terry needed that win. That might be the
if that's the win we have, Andrew, we have much bigger problems. Do not hang a banner. No banner.
Oh my goodness. All right, mailbag part 2. Oh, a lot of statistics, but I love Dolly drama, so I'm going to read them in full. 733 days, as he wrote that, since Johnny Dawkins had won a postseason game. If they prevail over Oregon State, they potentially take on Cincinnati, team he hadn't beaten in 1,118 days. Never won a postseason tournament at UCF. Deepest run in the Final Four to the NIT in 2017. The question, those are all the stats, Andrew, that set up the question. When does Terry Modger deliver the vote of confidence for this program's direction and leadership, or is it just apathy and hope that football pops for a springboard to another AD job? Get right to it.
Andrew, your thoughts.
What? All right. Let me play around with this question a little bit. What does he want? I know he wants Johnny Dawkins replaced, but what other commitment does he want? Does Dolly want? Do others want from Mahajer? And every dollar that you want committed to basketball is coming out of football. And none of you are going to agree to that. So I don't know why we keep having these same conversations over and over again, Andrew.
This is you guys. Can you give me a break? You guys threw me into the fire immediately. No,
He didn't get these questions in advance, by the way.
Well, I can ask you. I can ask you another.
No. It's all right. It's all right. I can answer it. So the question you're asking is, what does Dolly want out of Terry? To see.
I think
it shows a vote of confidence for men's basketball at UCF to succeed.
He mentioned there hasn't been a tournament since what was it, 7 years, correct?
Yes.
So a tournament appearance. I mean, with the resources that UCF applies to men's
don't use
basketball,
not use the R word.
The resources, Adam, the resources.
Every time you
Johnny's
use that,
working when he
UCF might
can.
gets his wings.
This team, I thought wholeheartedly that this team was capable of a tournament run this year, especially earlier in the year. That lost some hope when Jalen Sellers went down. I think this team would have looked a lot different with Jalen on the court. I mean, you look at the season, Darius, Keyshawn, Mustafa had, you put another 12-point per game scorer, 5 rebounds at least. That's another 2-3 wins right there. Basketball it's college coaching is a business.
You're filibustering.
I know. I'm running out of words. This is a hard question.
4 score and 7 years ago.
I would say Terry needs to show that he's willing to make a move. Terry needs to show that he has the best interest of the program and not just keeping it financial based. I think he needs to put wins over money, and I think that's the way to win the crowd back.
I think, Trace, to answer the question, when does he give Johnny Dawkins a vote? I don't think he does. I think Terry Modger says Johnny Dawkins is under contract for next year. Why would he not be my coach? I don't think he makes any statement. I think he
doesn't have to make any
keeps
statement,
it moving, right?
But 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah, I think he lets that play out. I don't think he makes any statement. I think he just lets him play it out. In terms of what fans want, I don't want to put this just on Dolly because he's not the only one who's asking this question.
No.
And I understand it's a really tough measurement, but we're all sitting here watching March Madness and we're seeing teams like McNeese State win, and every UCF fan saying, "Why can't that be us?" And now they're not comparable at all. I get it. McNeese plays in a much weaker conference in the Big 12, and so it's not apples to apples. But I think that's just the frustration of UCF fans. Is every March I turn my TV on to watch the tournament, and I never see UCF. We've got to get there. I don't think anyone has a plan on how to do that, Trace. I don't think the three of us could spend the next 6 hours in this live stream, and I don't think we could come up with a plan to get UCF to the tournament. But the reality is every year we see a tournament played and UCF's not in it. And I think fans are they want to be a part of that, and they see other schools doing it. And you say to yourself, why can't that be us? Someone's got to figure this out. And people smarter than us, no one's ever figured it out, except for one time.
Robert, at 2 letters, 2 words. Could the Crown replace the NIT as the second best tournament? I think you could argue based on the quality of the field that would be the case this year. And could the way the Crown is set up financially affect the way the NCAA operates its tournament? I mean, all the dollars are really in the NCAA tournament, but Fox and other partners paying for the whole show to create a rival tournament. Be interested to see what the TV ratings look like for this one, Adam, if there's some interest.
Yeah, 3 letters for that, ROI. Like, is it going to pay to continue to pay teams to come out to play this basically made for TV tournament? If it does, yes, I think it could absolutely replace the NIT because it's in Vegas. It's over a shorter period of time. There's money on the line, right? Absolutely will replace the NIT in a heartbeat. But is it financially going to make sense for Fox in a couple of years? That I don't know. Like, I have no idea how much they're going to spend to put this on, how much they're going to get in revenue and ratings. After a while, it just may not make sense for them. But absolutely, I think it's already replaced the NIT.
Andrew, hard-hitting one here. If UCF wins the Crown, can the season arguably be called a success? That's from @Andrew_.
I wonder who asked that. I was going to say, I wonder who asked that one. You guys get me on the show to answer my own questions. That's what's going on here.
Well, that's all part of
Kismet. It's Kismet.
I would say
they got to win the whole thing.
And if the season is a success, no. It'll just make it could have been worse, like I said earlier. I think
Adam, redemption?
Nope.
I think UCF making it to the big dance, getting knocked out in the first round would have been better than
if I'm ever allowed back on Twitter, that's going to be a poll question.
Let me ask you both this question.
Will you accept a banner hanging?
Let me ask you both this question. At the beginning of every year, there's a tournament that's put on in Maui. There's the Hawaii tournament. ESPN's there. All the coaches wear Hawaiian shirts. Every year, someone wins that tournament. Does that make that season successful for that team? Do they hang a banner if they win the Maui Invitational? It's just it's another tournament. It doesn't matter.
At UCF Mike 1, you remember him in 2019 men's basketball, tip away from beating Duke, advancing to the Sweet 16. Football coming off the back-to-back New Year's 6 games. 2025, let's advance to 2025, says UCF Mike. Better resources as a member of the Big 12. UCF can't sniff a bowl game and is playing in the Crown. How is this possible, Adam?
Talent acquisition. That's my answer. I don't think we've had the right mix of players on either. It sounds like this is a football and basketball question. I don't think we put together the right teams to compete at that level. So I'm going to go talent acquisition. You can determine that as financial from NIL, coaches picking the wrong people, players not getting developed. But I think it's talent acquisition is my answer.
Well, let's dig in on those three things. You said on talent acquisition, NIL, right? UCF's way behind in that, right? By every measurable. What about development? Do you credit Dawkins and staff on development?
It's a great question. I think. And you guys were closer to Johnny this year than I was, just physically, frankly, right? Like I saw an exasperation on Johnny Dawkins this year that I haven't seen in previous years, where it looked like he wanted his team to go do certain things, and they just weren't doing it, whether they couldn't or didn't want to. I don't have the answer to that. And so somehow that the chemistry, I guess, didn't develop potentially, right? So I don't know if you call that development, but I saw an exasperated Johnny Dawkins more so than I've seen in his previous 9 seasons here.
And what was the third one that you had?
Talent development, acquisition, coaches, just bad decisions on who to play and sort of lineups and playmakers and all that stuff.
At Satis Rockers, if UCF Mike wishes to not watch more UCF basketball, can he not just change the channel, Andrew? I mean, I think this is that Mike inserting himself back into the spotlight time of year when he's talking about why UCF shouldn't claim any glory for being in the Crown.
No, I believe wholeheartedly a fan should be entitled to any opinion they want, even if not saying this particular situation is if they're wrong, if they're right. The fan has a right. They watch the games, they support. Yeah, I mean, he can watch and then complain, but it's what's going to have to happen. I mean, I don't think Mike can go in there and give the guys a pep talk, get some things changing.
I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that pep talk. At M. Jonid Johnson, who will be the biggest contributor on basketball during the Crown? Mustafa.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 3-time award winner Mustafa Cham. I also think Darius Johnson, right? His last run, in a UCF uniform. Andrew talked about how special it was for senior night. Perhaps he gets to put on that jersey one more time and decides to go ballistic and throw a 40 burger up there. That would be fantastic.
I think we all need to appreciate that Darius Johnson fouling out of the Kansas game, potentially losing that game because he wasn't on the court. We have to be grateful that wasn't his last appearance in a Knights jersey. And I think we'll see more great things out of him in the Crown. And I'm also big on Keyshawn. If Keyshawn needs to stop having the low shooting percentage performances, I need more of those 40 balls.
At Todd Maz on Blue Sky, what things must UCF basketball do to become more of a force in the Big 12? And why do those things not involve Johnny Dawkins? Adam?
I don't know how to take that second part. I assume he means that Johnny shouldn't be around. Look, we talked about NAL, right? I think that's obviously a way to attract players. I think one of the flaws of this team, guys, was too many players had the same skill set. Too many players played the same position, had the same skill set. I don't think we had a lot of complementary players. A lot of these guys were drive and dish guys. Who's catching those passes and shooting those threes? It certainly wasn't Debo Coleman. So you had a lot of drive and dish, a lot of slashers in this team, but not a lot of guys who really spread the floor, space things out a little bit. A lot of one-on-one ball, and maybe that was the offense. I don't know. But I think you need more complementary players. You can't have 4 guys who need the ball in their hands in an ISO situation. At some point, that's just not an offense.
We've lost Andrew's mic.
We have lost Andrew's mic. Hold on. He's
hello. You guys got me?
We got you.
All right. I was saying, looking at back this year's roster and last year's roster, looking at them side to side, I kind of made the acknowledgement that Johnny created the exact opposite roster of what he had last year. Johnny had a bunch of catch and shoot 3 guys, perimeter wings, 3-and-D guys, and also big players in the low post. We had like 3 big men, including CJ Walker, Omar Payne, Ibrahima Diallo. And then this year, and then they didn't have a lot of playmaking shot creators on the team last year. Now we look at the team this year, a bunch of playmaking shot creators, but not really any catch and shoot guys, and very low depth in the forward room, which in the forward and bigs room, which led to disaster. A lot of these late, intense physical matchups.
At Music City Mensch on Blue Sky wraps things up in segment 2 of our mailbag. Hypothetically, if UCF had to find a new men's basketball coach for 25-26, how much more in salary would you have to pay to land that person? And would boosters be happy about that? Secondarily, with there being such slim pickings, who out there would be worth that kind of money? I think that question sets things up. If you haven't made a move by now, who are you going to get? And I know nobody likes the resource question, but there isn't money to go acquire the big names that people want.
Johnny Dawkins is already the lowest paid coach in the Big 12.
Yes.
And then if he was to be fired from his job this year, there will be somewhat of a buyout. Next year, if he was fired, there wouldn't be a buyout after that, or they'll just be letting him go. The cap, I think, would have to be either around the same or lower than the current Johnny Dawkins contract, which means you're going to have to find a low money requiring coach. Came out weird. And putting it all together with a team that can do more with less. I think UCF has been historically known as a program that has needed to do more with less, and this will be no change in program history.
I did some quick research on this, Trace. According to USA Today, Johnny Dawkins, as Andrew pointed out, was the lowest paid coach in the Big 12 for schools that report that. There are schools like BYU that don't report their coach.
I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest to you BYU.
I don't disagree with you there. The second lowest paid coach.
They have a heated field for baseball, paying basketball coaches.
The second lowest paid coach was Craig Smith at Utah. He don't work there no more, so you can cross him off. If you take just the Big 12 coaches that have their salaries reported, the average salary for Big 12 coaches is $3.8 million. Johnny's at 2. So if you want to be at the average,
you got to double it.
Yeah,
you got to double it.
Now there are a couple guys on the lower end. I think Will Lutz at Oklahoma State is, Thad Boyle at Colorado is, but also check out where those teams are at in terms of schedule, in terms of record. 3.8 is the median.
I think they're in the crown.
They are in the crown.
It's in the crown. Andrew Cherico, thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
During Sons of UCF Live. And we'll have more basketball coverage coming up over the next couple of weeks. Got to preview the crown in depth next week on Sons Live.
You guys want me to get my dad?
Is he up now?
Or now?
He is up.
Well, it's up to you.
Listen,
I don't
if
think
you guys want to put me in the back room, we can bring me back in when.
All right. Well, Andrew Cherico goes to
there's
the
some
green
money
room.
on the line.
I'm a broke college student, guys.
Tell Ted, you just got to make a quick appearance. There's some money in it.
$200. Andrew Cherico to the green room, and we'll see what happens next. I feel really bad for Andrew Gregg, who's been in the green room now for no fewer than 20 minutes. I think he's talking on the phone to himself because I see him talking to somebody. And he's not even next on the rundown, which is unfortunate.
But next is Jeff Allen and the look around the Big 12.
7 Big 12 schools were selected to the big dance in the opening round of March Madness. 4 of them are in action today. Houston, which nabbed one of the top seeds, plays SIU Edwards earlier today, as did BYU as a 6th seed, battling 11th seed VCU. Check your favorite score source, as those results were not available at the time of this recording. Number 7, Kansas, making its record 33rd consecutive NCAA tournament, is facing number 10, Arkansas this evening, and maybe near its conclusion right now on CBS. After Sons Live, you can catch 3rd-seeded Texas Tech against 14th-seeded UNC Wilmington on True TV. That is our first ever True TV reference on the Big 12 Minute. Tomorrow, 9th-seeded Baylor faces number 8 Mississippi State in the first game of the day at 12:15 on CBS. Number 3 Iowa State takes on the 14-seed Lipscomb at 1:30 on TNT. And Arizona as a 4-seed battles Akron as a 13-seed at 6:35 on True TV. 6 other Big 12 teams made postseason play in the NIT. Wichita State fell to Oklahoma State 89-79 on Tuesday night. And in the brand new college basketball crown tournament, Utah, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Colorado, and UCF receive bids. That tourney tips on March 31st, and we will give you that lineup on next week's Big 12 Minute. 7 Big 12 teams are dancing in women's March Madness. That started last night. In first 4 action, Iowa State rallied from a 15-point deficit to defeat Princeton in an 11-seed game. The Cyclones advance to play 6-seed Michigan tomorrow. Also on tap tomorrow, 2nd seed TCU hosts the number 15 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Number 4 Baylor entertains number 13 Grand Canyon. 5th seeded K-State goes against 12th seeded Fairfield, and number 8 Utah squares off against number 9 Indiana. On Saturday, 6 seed West Virginia plays the winner of today's 11 seed first four play-in game between Columbia and Washington, and number 7 Oklahoma takes on number 10 South Dakota State. All women's tournament games will be on the ESPN family of networks. 3 Big 12 teams were selected for the women's NIT that tips off today, with Arizona, Colorado, and Texas Tech making the field. With your Big 12 minutes, I'm Jeff.
Plus, there was a women's version of The Crown, and the TMSer has accepted with 4 conference wins. By the way, Colorado, not to diminish The Crown, and I'm looking forward to a banner raising at the arena. Colorado's in the Crown. They're 3-17.
All right, well, Trace, the moment we've been waiting for, we've got to pay this off. Here's Andrew Jericho.
Hey,
back.
How you doing,
Mr. Jericho? Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Did we get you up from a nap there? Did Andrew?
Yeah, well, I was watching some of the March Madness, and then I conked out. Yeah, so yeah, but
you guys got volume? Can you hear?
We got you loud and clear.
Yeah. But my dad's got St. John's, I think, going all the way.
Yeah, I have St. John's. Yeah.
Really? How'd you do in your bracket today?
Yeah. Well,
bracket's busted.
It's busted.
I helped him set it up. It's busted.
But I'm just originally from New York. Originally, a Gale from New Rochelle, an Ionian. But also rooting for St. John's. I have family members that went there, so rooting for them. Hometown.
Look at that. Now we've got another Cherico as part of the Sons of UCF family.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cherico. You've raised a good kid.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for taking good care of him, because he speaks very highly of both of you. So thank you so much for guiding him and mentoring him in his chosen future career. So.
Yeah, and a salute to you for your patience and not getting upset with me as we leave the arena at close to midnight. And you're picking up Andrew, and I'm like, well, we're doing a couple of takes to get things right there.
No, it's all understood. All in a day's work, right? So.
All right. I'm not sure how I feel right now. This is an episode I did not expect.
Yeah,
it's like a crossover episode in like a TV show.
You never know what'll happen.
Well, Andrew, we'll let you get back to enjoying your spring break.
So
and Mr. Cherico, good seeing you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
It's a variety show.
It's bringing families together, bringing people together. Who knows?
You never know who's going to be on here. All right, UCF baseball gets the midweek win over Stetson after taking 2 of 3 at BYU. 16-4 now. Maybe, just maybe, flirting with a top 25 berth. Let's bring in Andrew Gregg, part of the Suns Army, who has been covering UCF baseball this season. Andrew, the team has got some momentum heading into their conference series against Houston this weekend.
Yeah, guys, thank you guys for having me back on. And like you mentioned, obviously, with the Stetson win in the midweek, it was just a great day for Knights fans. UCF baseball continued their dominant stretch on Tuesday against Stetson, winning 3-0 in a shutout win. Grant Siegel had his best start on the mound, going 5 innings. After loading the bases in the first, he didn't give up another base runner, going sitting down 13 straight hatters in order. It wasn't the typical Knights offensive explosion, but they were able to pull through when they needed to. Edion Espinal had a 2 RBI single in the bottom of the 7th to help propel the Knights to victory there. And then over the weekend, you mentioned it, in snowy Provo, they had to face the BYU Cougars. It was a bit of an up and down series. They scored late in the first game to win that game, but getting walked off in the second game, they headed to a rubber match on Saturday, in a Saturday day game, the final game of that series, rather than a Sunday game. But anyways, in the rubber match, they found a way to pull it off, even despite giving up 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th there. And they move it into this weekend's matchup against Houston, their first Big 12 home series, winners of 10 of their last 11. And if, like you mentioned at the top of this, if they want to get a top 25 ranking, you'd like to see a sweep over a Houston team that's coming into it a little bit flailing as an 11-9 team.
You've been digging into the statistics a lot. The Knights, the bats are hot.
Yeah, the bats are more than hot. They're like, if you touch one of the bats, they're gonna burn you. They're the number 2 batting average team in the country, is batting at 351. They are top 5 in on base percentage at 457. They have tied 4th most hits in all of the NCAA, and the 3 teams above them not only have played more games but have 25, 70, and 90 more bats respectively. So I mean, the bats are flying, and then not only are the bats hot, the defense and the pitching has been like, we just had a shutout win. So in a game that we only scored 3 runs and still were able to pull it out. So the pitching has also been incredible as well. We're 6th in the whole country in ERA at 2.99. They have the tied 9th most shutouts with 3 on the season, 9th in WHIP. Tied 22nd in double play. So between pitching, defense, offense, this Knights team has been off to a tear to start the season.
Adam, they're 9th in WHIP. What do you think of that?
I'm a big fan of WHIP. Andrew, are you surprised, or do you get the sense that any of the players are surprised at how well this season has gone so far for UCF?
I might be a little bit surprised personally, but I don't think any of the players are. They came into media day with a lot of confidence. I think we talked about that when we first opened up the media day recap. We were talking about how much confidence the players did have coming off their first season in the Big 12, and they've carried that into the season. They have had little to no struggles. They had a 3-game losing streak with 3 of their 4 losses came in a row. And since then, obviously 10 of their last 11 have been wins. And they're doing it pretty handily. That BYU series, you didn't really know what you're going to get out of that first road series of the season. They're traveling 6 hours away, coming off a game where they played Tuesday and then Thursday. They handle that series pretty well. And they're rolling. So.
You know what could be nice for these Knights is that Dom Stagliano struggled in a couple of early starts on Friday, moved to the Sunday starter, and he sort of found himself, had a good outing at BYU. That could be something for the Knights if they bookend the weekend with a strong Dom Stagliano.
Yeah, I mean, Sundays were the biggest issue for the Knights last season. They gave up a lot of series based off the Sunday game. So the fact that they have what looked to be their best starter on the mound at the start of the season on Sundays to kind of close out series from now on is just something, a luxury that a lot of teams don't have. And with that bullpen behind him as well, like even if he has a rocky game, I think we have 3 guys right now that have a 0.0 ERA. So I mean, out of that bullpen, we have a lot of arms as well.
All right, Andrew, we got hot bats, whip. I get all that stuff. I need the answer to the important question right now. If UCF wins the crown, do we have to hang a banner in the arena? Would you hang a banner if we win the crown?
No banner. No banner.
I like this kid. I always liked him.
The basketball crown, it was invented this year. I can't support being behind a banner. I just can't see it. I also don't think we're going to win. So no,
that's also fair.
There's also that.
Makes it easier. No. That's a man with a good answer. I appreciate that, Andrew.
Andrew Gregg for the Sons of UCF baseball coverage and much more. Andrew, thank you. Continue to be safe this spring break. We'll see you out at the John.
See you at the John. I'll see you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Andrew.
Right. Baseball back home Friday at 6, Saturday at 6, Sunday at 1, hosting Houston. They're going to recognize the 40 years of UCF baseball at the Division I level. Tuesday, they're up in Jacksonville. What could we do to get you, Mr.
What is that? What day?
Tuesday at Jacksonville.
Which Tuesday? There's a bunch of them coming up.
March 25th, coming up Tuesday.
Do we have any recordings that night? I mean, we do a show at night. Do we have anything?
We'll clear the schedule.
Okay.
To not have a recording.
And
so
you know what? I'm looking at my calendar, which is sitting right over here to my left, your right. I don't have anything on it at that point, so it's a probability.
Michael Theed writes great articles, and you follow him on Twitter at emptiness4 on sonsofUCF.com right now. UCF baseball beats BYU and the Elements. He recaps where the Knights are to this point. Check out that article. And I've got some free tickets, though. You're going to have to DM Adam at Sons of UCF
God.
because
that works for me. Unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I'm currently in suspension mode, apparently, courtesy of TFEUDZ on Twitter. Any of the games this weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, DM at Sons of UCF if you're interested in those tickets. Softball on just before us. They drop an extra inning affair, 2-0 to Iowa State. They dropped 2 of 3 at home against Arizona State, lost at Florida. They had defeated number 4 Arizona out in Tucson 2 of 3, but a skid now for the Knights. I think they only had a couple hits, 20, 12-1, 3-4 in the Big 12. And this was a series that really they had the makings of that they could sweep. So softball starting on a Thursday, Friday at 6, Saturday at noon, and then they host number 3 Florida Wednesday at 6 o'clock. All right, let's play that game. This one I like better. Who said it, Bailey or Christian, in their episode this week from the Pegasus podcast? I think I like the read as provided by you.
All right.
As my favorite part.
Do you want me to try an accent in it, or do you just straight out? Here we go. Here, all right.
An accent.
Sure, yeah. All right, here we go. They had one more Big 12 win this year than last year, and won a tournament game. Progress.
Speaking of Satya Messer and the Women's Crown participants, the UCF Knights, I'm going to go with Bailey on that one.
All right, survey says.
Well, I thought it was funny. I said to you is that they had one more Big 12 win this year than last year, and they won a tournament game. Progress.
On progress. You can find the Pegasus podcast.
3-1 now, I think, in this. Wow.
Yeah, I'm on a roll.
Christian, I don't know, man. Like we were messaging back and forth, and he was hoping that this one would stump you. So I don't know. We got to figure this out, Christian. You and Bailey got up your game 3-1 for Chalco. Thanks.
Well, they can't game the system there. I just think I have a sense of their personalities. That's all. Pegasus podcast right now on Sons of UCF's YouTube channel. Let's take a look at some news and notes.
Malachi Lawrence, defensive end. Let's go around the kingdom.
Let's go around the kingdom. Announced by the Knights this week. Revenue sharing. Goodbye, Kingdom. I won't be calling it that anymore. They're replacing it with the Success Fund to Strengthen Student Athletes or something like that. I don't know. What do you think of the name of this?
Rolls off the tongue. I think it's CSF, if I have that correct. Which you
Competitive Success Fund.
Or Coach Scott Frost, if you want to do that as well. Yeah, look, I mean, everything's going to be changing. I think there's a lot of confusion about what's going on with the Kingdom. I think it was needed for UCF to put something out to kind of explain what the next steps look like. I don't know that I understand it all fully too. Our hope is at some point we'll get somebody from UCF on maybe to give some more clarity on what this looks like. You know, I think there's a lot of folks out there who want to contribute and want to know how to contribute and what their contributions are going to. And so hopefully we'll get that figured out. But UCF obviously taking the first step of at least announcing and what they think will happen. Again, a lot of this too, by the way, Trace, we're forgetting one minor thing here. This is all contingent on that House settlement passing, which is not necessarily a slam dunk. There are certainly holes in that. So a lot of this is contingent upon that. So stay tuned on how all that shakes out.
Yeah, that settlement, if approved, would begin July 1. Universities can share revenue with students upwards of $20.5 million, the cap for 25-26. UCF intends to get to that number. It needs a little more fundraising to do so, and they are announcing that they're going to create 74 more scholarships for Olympic sports. So UCF, Big 12 school, wants to remain competitive with its brethren. The Competitive Success Fund going to replace what we know as the Kingdom. That is the news out of UCF this week. We mentioned Around the Kingdom. Eric Lopez and I chopping it up on this week's show. I always look forward to the clip, people.
And now you bring in Gus, and magically it's closed, so we know who had the influence, because that's what Gus did here. Hey, by the way, can you answer this question for me, Trace? All this hiding that Gus did, right, of all the practice, how many wins did they get? How did that work?
Imagine if they hadn't hit. Would they have gotten 4? He kept everything secret. They got to 4 wins. Yeah.
Hey, can somebody let him know there's this thing called video streaming and everybody can watch all your plays now? Like, it's absurd. It's absurd. The paranoia that some of these coaches have. It's absurd, and it harms the program, and it harms their fan base. And then they can't complain when they get the fans turn on them, Trace.
It's absurd. It's absurd. If you're still watching us and drinking, absurd.
Here's what's funny is I don't recognize that live when we're doing the show. It isn't until I watch it back that I see all these gems that Eric Lopez produces each week on Around the Kingdom.
You can find Around the Kingdom on Sons of UCF's YouTube channel as well. A plethora of shows and clips to watch. All right. For the third time, it is that time again.
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
You know, if in fact I've been booted by Elmo Musk on the Twitter.
Well, that's not going to help you.
You're going to have to run the mailbag segment. You're going to have to launch it from Sun's account. as I won't be able to do that. I'll
We
hold
got
down the
interns
fort
for this.
on Blue
There's
Sky.
got to be an intern that can do this. Yes, there's got to be somebody. Where's Nick
UCF
Williams at? Nick,
Nick, what are you doing? Nick will be out of baseball this weekend at UCF_Zach. Trey said he won't beg for questions to save Peterson's mailbag. Fair enough. But let's say Terry Mahajer grants you one athletics-related request, but you have to beg for it. What are you begging for? I ain't begging for nothing. Period.
I mean, it's tough to follow that very terse response. I
There's
think
no begging.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to beg for something, but if a genie popped out and said, "We'll grant you one UCF athletics wish," man, I think it would just be continued or more competitive in the NIL space. I think that unfortunately that's where things are going in college athletics. What that looks like post house, if that comes through, I don't know yet. But I would beg for a Mike Rapoli, who is out on social media talking about how he bought St. John's a NCAA tournament in a Big East conference championship. I'd love to buy myself one of those as well.
At the JC Morning, who's the most underrated head coach at UCF, and why is it Coach Boone of track and field?
That's a great question. I'm not up to date on our track and field statistics, although it feels like we have some people that are really fast, which I think is important. It depends on how you term underrated. I mean, Rich Wallace to me comes to mind, but he's getting a lot of love now with the way UCF is performing. Obviously, Cindy
you have
Malone.
successful tennis coaches right now, top 20 ranked, both men's and women's tennis.
Can you name those people though?
Well, that was part of the question, wasn't it? Well, let's not name the tennis.
All right. Scott Calabrese.
Burgess is one. Kaneko is the other.
Kaneko's the other. Scott Calabrese. That's the other name I'd throw.
Yeah. We just named every coach.
Oh, we didn't name every coach. We didn't name every coach.
I'm going to lump these three together. UCF football 2024. First question: why do we still employ Terry, Dawkins, and Messer? Next question: who should we target to replace Dawkins? Next question: who should we target to become our new AD? I get the sense UCF football 2024 wants to get rid of some people. I do think, though, kind of an under-discussed story is, if I'm not mistaken, Terry's contract expires summer 2026, which puts him at about a year and a half or so out, 15 months out. At what point is Dr. Cartwright going to extend Terry Mahajer's contract? When we're talking about who should be the basketball coach and all of that, who do you want making that decision? That's, I think, going to be an interesting question. And for the people that want to see Messer or Dawkins go, who do they want to see go first? Do they want to see Mahajer go and then make these decisions, or what do they want to see there?
Like, I think with Messer and Dawkins, I understand that the records and the body of work don't lend you to have a ton of confidence that these are the two right coaches for UCF going forward, and that's earned based on their performance. However, both of them have dead money that you would owe them if they were no longer coaching at UCF. I think Messer's in the 650 range. Dawkins is in the 1 million range. So is anybody willing to take 1.6 out of UCF's already soft coffers to get rid of those two coaches, when Terry Mahajer and the athletics department are talking to you about how they need to continue to fundraise for the Coach Scott Frost Fund, whatever that thing is called, right? So do you have 1.6 to play with to be able to move on from those two? I think that's just a tough decision for UCF to make right now. In terms of who would I want to replace Mahajer, I don't have an AD hot board. I will tell you a guy who was really impressive with Trace. We met him briefly at Big 12 Media Day, and he's done some interesting things on social media that I really liked, is Graham Rossini. He's the athletic director at Arizona State. Now, I don't know that he comes to UCF. I don't know how you look at that move from an upward mobility standpoint, but a younger AD hired Kenny Dillingham, obviously, that turned that program around. Although he's keeping Bobby Hurley, which is a little bit controversial, but I like
maybe he's thinking the same thing about dead money on the books.
That's potential. So I have no idea if he would actually be that person, but he was a longtime sports business executive, and I think that's where this has to go, Trace. I think the days of hiring the former player who was the great star at the team, I just don't think that can fly in the AD chair. That may fly in the GM chair, and we're seeing a lot of that. I saw Ron Rivera today was hired as Cal's new sort of head of football operations, whatever we're going to call it, GM. I think the business side of college football is getting such that I think you need someone maybe with some of that background too. So, but again, we have no idea if any of those people will be around next year, but wait and see, I guess.
At @blackgold_ed, is Cindy Ball Malone making the same or more than Satia Messer's reported $650,000 per year? Question 2, should she? I do not believe softball is anywhere near that number.
I did some research. You're back, Trace. Again, this is according to Sportico, the top 20 college softball coaches, 2 make more than $650,000 a year. Only 2 coaches in all of college softball make more than that in the 2024 season. So that should tell you where that sort of salary slot looks like from the college. And that was Texas and Oklahoma were 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, right. 2 of the best programs. Oklahoma's won multiple national championships. And should she? I think this all needs to align according to the revenue these sports generate, right? So what does softball generate? What does women's basketball generate? And then there are Title IX implications. It's messy. And then we end with at Manpenda on Blue Sky. If you're making a grilled cheese sandwich, what kind of cheese are you throwing on there? Straight cheddar, variety, something else? Like, how about those Kraft singles in a little plastic cheese? They still make that product?
They do. Oh, yeah.
They still make those?
Yeah.
I'm all for whatever kind of cheese. Something with some garlic in it would be good. Any number of good cheeses out there.
Yeah, I would do a smorgasbord of cheese. I don't like blue cheese. I don't know if we're counting that. You throw some Munster on there, some pepper jack, some cheddar, some.
You don't like blue cheese, the dressing, or you've had blue cheese. You don't like blue cheese.
Just the actual blue cheese. Period. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the blue cheese.
Not a fan of that. Any other cheese you can throw on that? Provolone is fine. I'm all for mixing it up, but you got to throw some bacon on there too for me.
On a grilled cheese sandwich?
Yeah. Why would you?
Well, then it's not a grilled cheese sandwich anymore.
What is it then at that point?
That's a bacon cheese sandwich.
That sounds delicious. Trey's not gonna lie to you.
If you want to throw other things on there, it's no longer.
A lot of people like tomato on their grilled cheese. I don't, but a lot of people like tomato on their grilled cheese.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your mailbag questions. Direct those to Adam beginning Monday at Sons of UCF.
Nick Williams, UCF.
All right. This has been a long show. Yeah, let's find out what's in the box.
We got Alumni Hall here, 4100.
Did we lose all the interns? Why didn't we keep Andrew Gregg on to answer
Half
this
the
question?
interns are gone. That's a great question. I got 3 here. I'm going to do a rummage. I love a good rummage. I'm not looking. I don't know what this says. It's going to be a fun one, Trace. It's
probably not.
You want to check out
How much time do you spend working on these questions?
Less than a minute a month. Interesting one. What is the last thing you did for the first time?
I don't know.
What's the last thing you did for the first time?
The last thing I did for the first time? Well, when I was in Tallahassee, I checked out 2 new breweries that I hadn't been to before. Does that count?
Sure.
I mean, that was literally yesterday. So that was something new.
Okay. All right.
I like checking out new breweries I haven't been to. I caught up with Clay Pasco, who's
I saw that photograph. That was fantastic.
Yeah. He's a good dude working hard up there in Tallahassee, interning, and he took me to a burger place that is well known that I hadn't been to. So I'm all about experimenting on stuff like that.
We give Clay a lot of crap around here. We make fun of him, and he's a good sport about it. But he's busted his tail this semester up in Tallahassee, basically, interning pretty much 5 days a week at the Capitol, long hours. It's a prestigious honor to even get invited to that as well too. So hats off to Clay and kudos for doing that. I don't know how many students would invest that time and their spring break right now, right? Hanging out with Trace at the Capitol, down in burgers and watching him hang out with breweries. I don't know what the last thing I did for the first time is.
Did those count? Will that be sufficient for your?
I'd like something more adventurous than that. But I'm not mad about it. Man, what's the last thing I did for the first time?
Well, I mean, any of the football stadiums I hadn't been in, those were all new. I don't know. I've done a lot of things. I mean, I still want to jump out of an airplane. I mean, I've rappelled. I've bungee jumped. I've whitewater rafted. The big adventure thing that I still want to do is jump out of a plane.
I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I can't let this go. And so I'm going to have to bring this up.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this week.
Can you explain?
Why are you bringing this?
I didn't write. Can you explain this to me? Jan picked you up in her pajamas and drove you home. Can I get some clarity here? Just a guy asking questions.
I feel like there needs to be clarity.
Just a guy asking questions here. That's all I am.
I rented a car, and Jan, it's right around the corner, and Jan was good enough to pick me up after dropping off the rental car so that I didn't have to walk home.
And before Robert asks, what kind of rental car was this? Because that's the next question coming.
It was a normal colored Plymouth something or other.
You know what I did for the last thing I did for the first time? I moved my UCF season tickets. I took advantage of the seat relocation. I moved to I was on the topper half of the cabana. I now moved down to the bottom half of the cabana. So section 129.
Why did you do this?
It's a common thing. A bunch of the folks that we all kind of mingle with up in the cabana moved our seats in that area, so we have a swath of seats together. So now you're not sitting next to randos if you're at games, not at games. So it's more of a conglomeration of folks. Some other folks are moving their tickets as well if they can get down there. So it's more to cluster our group closer together. So I'll be in a new section this year. That's the last
you
thing.
You won't be able to wander around the top of the stadium.
Oh, I can go wander all I want. That's the problem is as I was making this move, I was like, am I really going to sit in those seats though? Or am I just going to stand up top? That's a great question. But I feel like it's a new regime. Should I try something different? Clearly the standing wasn't working. So should I try something different and sit in these seats and see if that helps UCF get any better?
You're just rubbing in the fact that you weren't banned from relocating your seats.
Well, I part of the group that also moved their seats was one UCF Mike, who as famously was banned until he decided to share as many F words as he could think of on Twitter at Terry Mahajer and got unbanned. So UCF Mike also
in his screed at Terry Mahajer, was there an F-bomb? There was.
Oh yeah.
That's in the newsletter, isn't it? You put that.
No, that's a different. Yes. Yeah. No, that was about the crown. That was a different F-bomb.
I lose
different.
I lose track. What was the question you were going to? Was it the Jan question? Was that?
Yeah, that's the one I need to know is why Jan picked you up in her pajamas.
I didn't know that. Just like sweatpants to me.
Robert wanting to know if you were in your pajamas.
No.
Okay.
No. All right. This is too much about pajamas. The show is gone.
I can't be blamed for this. I didn't do this.
Right. I need to change what does it say under my name? @Pez? Nope, not anymore. You're going to find me on Blue Sky. That's where I'll be on Blue Sky. I don't remember.
So hold on. If you get untangled here, are you coming back to the Twitter machine?
So if they restore my account. So again, to explain this, I think I sent you a message, and then I got a message that says, there looks like there's been some activity on your account. We need you to change your password. I went, okay. And before I could do that, the screen kind of dissolved. And then I got a screen message that said, your account's been deactivated and it's gone. But apparently you can see me on your side, but I can't see me. So I've filed the appropriate appeals and said, you asked me to change my password. I went to type in something and it disappeared. So I can't do anything.
Yeah, still an active account.
So if they restore me, then all will be right with the world. If they don't, I'm not sure I'm interested in building up the account.
Whoa.
I lived quite fine without it.
Yeah.
I can go back to not having it.
Wow.
That's fine. I mean,
sounds like a threat. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, but you do need to come up with a mailbag plan for Monday. And by the way, PTO, I'll be on some PTO next week, so it's all yours to figure out.
I think Andrew Cherico figured out the problem. He cracked your password.
No, I don't dislike us. I
think that was the problem there. Good job, Andrew.
Don't dislike.
Or was that Andrew's dad? I don't know who's tweeting from that account anymore.
Andrew's dad. Come on, that's what made this show.
Champ, that guy is unbelievable. I mean, fantastic. What a guy he is.
Yeah, good dude. Want to thank Andrew Cherico and his dad for being with us. Andrew Gregg for stopping by to talk a little UCF baseball. Plenty of mailbag. I hope you are happy, Brian W. Peterson, buried underneath all of the tax prep that you are doing in your busy role as an accountant. Adam, thank you for pulling it all together, and thank you everybody for being with us for this week's Sons of UCF Live. For Adam Eaton, I'm Trey Strelko. Go Knights!
Charge on. I dug deep in the crates for this one.
What's good, everybody? My name is JJ Taylor. I play small forward. And thank you for watching the Sons of UCF.
That was one of your selections in the season-long point tally.
We're still talking about that. Let's talk more about pajamas. What do you say?
I like the week you had a 0, and he was your leading scorer with like an 8.